And I'm all waiting for you.
They're not gonna look at us right away anyway. So.
Hello, everybody at home. How are you?
Good.
Good.
I'm going to ask you, there'll be a point where you can turn on your microphones while we're talking and while we're giving a lecture, if you put them on mute. Okay. Otherwise, we recorded. You hear me okay? Already put yourself on mute, didn't you? All right, hello everybody. Hello. Good to have you here. Hope you're all getting excited about this trip. I know I am. So it's always fun looking forward to something. We have some people at home. Hello, everybody at home. I think you can hear us. Hopefully you can hear us. Otherwise, we're in trouble. Can you hear us at home? All right, good. Hopefully you can. I think she's frozen. You can hear us, right? Thumbs up. Can you hear us?
Can you make it a little louder?
No. We can talk closer to it, and that's about as good as we get. Can you hear it okay? Otherwise, turn up
Yeah,
the
that's
volume.
good. That's good.
Okay, otherwise turn up the volume on your computer.
I did.
Okay, all right. I think that's as good as we get. So hopefully we won't have to look at our stomach the whole time. So hopefully it comes up. There we go. It takes a while to
That's
find.
good.
I think it's stockings. So, all right. Well, it's good to have everyone here. We're going to get started. If we could start with a word of prayer. So let's pray. Dear great and gracious God, we give you thanks for this beautiful day that you've given us, that you've blessed us with a new day of life. And as we turn our hearts and our minds to traveling in November, bless us tonight as we come together to think about that trip. Bless us in our preparations to get ready for traveling all together, and help us to really get excited for a wonderful trip. We thank you for all these things and ask that you bless us this evening. In your name we pray. Amen. I think Pastor Paul is going to take it over. We'll let you.
She is. I'm Paul Boldrin. From 1982 to 2001, I was one of the pastors here at St. John's, and I retired a year ago yesterday. And we're back here now. We're actually going to be rejoining the church next month. So it's very nice to be here. I appreciate you coming. And if you were at our first meeting back in April, you probably remember my amazing PowerPoint presentation. And I've reused a bunch of the pictures. And if you don't remember, it is all brand new and amazing. The first time I just talked about some of the places you're going to go see. This time, I'd like to talk about the places we're going to go see and how they tie into the Bible. Because what's so amazing about a trip to Israel is that all these places you read about your whole life as you read the Bible, you get to be there. And so what I've basically done is, and not for the whole trip, but for part of the trip, pictures of where we're going and Bible verses that tie into it, just to kind of try and give you the feel for it. And he is my go guy. When I say go, Chris is going to give us another.
Hopefully he'll be able to go. Are you saying go right now?
I'm saying, I'm ready to start my
Oh,
presentation.
I wasn't
Yeah.
ready for that. Sorry.
I'm ready, sir.
Okay.
And if it doesn't work, it was really good. And I'm sorry you don't get to see it.
All right.
There you go.
We'll get there.
Very good.
Wasn't quite ready. And share screen. This is where we suddenly, right when you don't want it to, it gives you trouble, right? Come on now.
One of the reasons I'm glad I'm retired is I don't have to deal with technology anymore, or Zoom meetings anymore. All that stuff is awesome now. There we go.
Can everybody see it at home? We'll assume you can. I'm trying to get rid of that
This will
little.
be saved on the site when you're done, it'll be.
If he saves it, sure.
I will save it. I'm trying to hide that and I'm trying to do this and this.
There you go.
All right.
Good, good. So as Chris said in his email that went out this week, 3 months from now, that's where we're gonna be. And I hope you are very excited. For my wife, Karen, Karen's going to be coming. She couldn't be here tonight. This will be our 3rd trip to the Holy Land. We were there in '93 and then in 2013, and we're very happy to be going back again to this amazing place. Next. There you are.
I've got one job tonight.
One job.
Hit the next button.
Again, if you've never been to Israel, it's important to know a few things. Israel is tiny. Okay, how it compares in size to the continental United States, how it compares in size to Lake Michigan. I like to say to drive from the southern end of Israel to the northern end is about the same as driving from Milwaukee to Green Bay. At its widest, it's from the distance from Waukesha to Madison. It's not a big country. Next, I should have a clicker. Israel it's a beautiful country. It is stark contrast. All these ancient cities, the main body of water, which we'll talk about a little bit, is the Sea of Galilee. But when you hear the word sea, don't let it go to your head. Next, please. Because the Sea of Galilee is actually about 1/3 the size of Lake Winnebago. So when you hear all these stories about the sea, it's 6 miles by 12 miles. You can see the whole thing. But it's the biggest source of fresh water in Israel. And it is crucially important to the story, not just of Jesus, but to the story of Israel. And we'll spend a good portion of our time around the Sea of Galilee. Next, please. So Israel and the Bible, Israel in the Bible. Our faith is built upon the stories about this country and the people who inhabited it. Of course, the most important being Jesus. And as I said in my years as a minister, loving the scriptures, when I was in Israel and for the first time, I could say, Jesus was here. He was right here. That is an amazing feeling. So again, some Bible passages about the places we are going to see. Some of them will be familiar to you, some of them maybe not, but I hope just to get us thinking about what we'll be seeing. Okay, please. We're going to start in Nazareth. And Nazareth is the hometown of Jesus. So next one, please. I'm going to move quickly.
Okay.
And again, the verse we hear every Advent time. In the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent by God to a town in Galilee called Nazareth, to a virgin engaged to a man whose name was Joseph of the house of David, and the virgin's name was Mary. We will be going to the town where Jesus was born. Okay, next. And in this town is a church, a modern church, but underneath the modern church is an ancient grotto with a cave. And this site is the traditional site. And much of what you hear in Israel is traditional because we don't know exactly where these things happen. Sometimes we do, but this is the traditional site where the angel Gabriel appeared to Mary. And now again, this is the lower level of a church. There's a big church above it, and you'll get to go in there and fortunate perhaps into the grotto itself, the traditional site of where Mary received that amazing message that this young girl, probably just a teenager, was going to be the one to give birth to the Messiah for whom Israel had been waiting for 500 years. We're not real good at waiting as Americans. We were coming back from Neenah yesterday, and they're doing construction work on Highway 41 southbound, when aren't they? And you get to the sign, left lane closed 2 miles. And so of course, we're good, we're in the right lane, and everyone in the left lane buzzing by, so they have to stop and cut. And God bless this semi driver who got in the left lane and just sat there. And he didn't let anybody get past him. And because we're not good at waiting, we're not good. The people of Israel had to learn waiting, and so much of what we'll learn in a country that is so much older than where we are. In Grafton, where I live, the oldest house in Grafton was built in the 1860s. Okay, now that's the new construction in Israel. We'll see ancient things like this, thousands of years old. Okay, next please. It was in Nazareth that Jesus preached one of his first sermons. In Luke's gospel, he stands up and in the synagogue and he reads these words. Next, please. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. Here Jesus quotes these prophetic words from Isaiah chapter 61. And then he says, today, these words have been fulfilled in your hearing. I'm the guy the prophet talked about 600 years ago. His townspeople were not very happy. The next slide, please. And we're told when they heard all this, all in the synagogue were filled with rage. And they got up and drove him out of town. This is how every pastor likes their sermons to go. And led him to the brow of the hill on which the town was built, so that they might hurl him off the cliff. But he passed through the midst of them and went on his way. And in the next picture, that's the hill. That's the hill. That's Nazareth in the background. And that's the hill they would have tried to throw Jesus off, because he dared to say, I'm the one the Lord has sent. So much of the story of Jesus is a story of conflict of those who were opposed to him on many different, for many different reasons, on many different accounts. And Jesus stands firm against all opposition all the way to the cross. Next, please. Right outside, when you're standing on that hill, they tried to throw Jesus off. You will see Mount Tabor off in the distance. Mount Tabor is very famous because there's a story about it in the Old Testament in the book of Judges. The story of Deborah, the only female judge of Israel. Next one, please. And we hear this story about Deborah gathers the forces of Israel on Mount Tabor. Her commanding general was a man named Barak, and they are about to face the forces of King Jabin of Syria and his commanding General Sisera. The mountain is important because the people of Israel were only an infantry. The forces of Syria had enormous cavalry, and they had chariots. And so how are we going to defeat these people? And the Lord says to Deborah these words. She summoned Barak and she said to him, the Lord, the God of Israel, commands you, go take position on Mount Tabor, and I will draw out Sisera, the general of Jabin's army, to meet you in the Wadi Kishon. Wadi is a dry riverbed that's dry most of the time, except when it rains. Israel can be a very dry country, but when it rains, it rains. We've forgotten, we used to live down here, and we've forgotten how much rain Waukesha County gets. Up in Grafton, storms all miss us, okay? But Waukesha, you get nailed. That's what it was like in the ancient world. And what happened in this battle is the people of Israel, the army, they're up on that mountain you just saw. The forces of the Syrians come riding down the valley, which you will be able to see the valley. And the rains came, a storm came, and the water rushed down the hillsides, and it mired the chariots of the Syrians. The Israelites rushed down the hill and they slaughtered the Canaanites. You actually will get to see that battlefield some 3,000 years later after it took place. It's a very famous story in the Bible. It's tied into a couple of other stories. General Sisera, who escaped, he does not stay and go down with his troops. He runs for his life, and he takes refuge in the house, in the tent of a woman named Jael. And it's one of those lovely stories I always enjoy teaching to confirmation students, and they always loved it, because she lulls him to sleep with warm milk, and while he's sleeping, she takes a big tent peg and she pounds it through his head. We don't preach on that one too often, but it's one of those amazing stories in the Bible. And one more. And then after that, Deborah leads the people of Israel in this amazing, beautiful song of victory in Judges chapter 5. Many scholars think it's perhaps the oldest passage in the Bible, perhaps dating back the poem going back to that very moment when the people of Israel defeated the armies of Syria. And it ends with this amazing image. One of the things I love about the Bible is the last portion of this psalm sung by the victorious Israelites is about General Sisera's mother waiting for him to come home, waiting, looking out the window of her house, just thinking, what kind of trophies, what kind of loot, what kind of booty will my son bring back for me from his victorious conflict against the Israelites, little knowing that he is dead. Again, don't preach on that one very often. But the Bible is filled with such raw emotion so many times. And you'll get to be the places that bring this alive. And for Israelis today, these powerful emotions are still very much alive. We're going to go to Capernaum. And Capernaum is a very, very important place on the north shore of the Sea of Galilee. Next, please. We're told this. Now, when Jesus heard that John, that's John the Baptist, had been arrested, he withdrew to Galilee. And he left Nazareth and he made his home in Capernaum by the sea. Most of Jesus's ministry in the northern part of the country takes place in this little town of Capernaum. Next, please. And we're told in the Gospels that Jesus preached in the synagogue in Capernaum. This is a synagogue in Capernaum. This was built centuries after the time of Jesus, built in beautiful white limestone. Next, please. And we'll hear the stories. When they came to Capernaum, and when the Sabbath came, that's Jesus, he entered the synagogue and taught, and they were astounded by his teaching, for he taught them as one having authority and not as the scribes. It's in that synagogue that Jesus begins his public ministry. The next one. And underneath that beautiful synagogue are these black basalt rocks. And these are the rocks from the synagogue in which Jesus would have been. So when you look down, there's actually a nice cutout on the floor. When you look down on those rocks that were the first century synagogue, you can say Jesus was right here. And not only was he right there in Capernaum, he was right somewhere else. You will see this fancy church. It looks a little bit like a UFO. And it is only a short distance, a stone's throw from the synagogue. And this church is built over these ruins, and these ruins we think are very important. Okay, the next one. Because we're told this in Matthew's gospel. When Jesus entered Peter's house, he saw his mother-in-law lying, that's Peter's mother-in-law, lying in bed with a fever, and he touched her hand and the fever left her, and she got up and began to serve them. Bible scholars believe that this house, which was excavated in the late 19th century, this structure was Peter's house in Capernaum. It's in this house that we hear the story of the paralytic, who is, so many people are around Jesus that no one can get to him. And so his friends hacked the hole in the roof. Next, please. And we're told, when he returned about to Capernaum after some days, he would go out traveling all around the area. It was reported that he was at home, and so many people gathered around that there was no longer room for them, not even in the front of the door. And he was speaking to them the word, and that's when these paralyzed man's friends hacked a hole in the roof of Peter's house, and they lowered down, and house insurance did not cover that. But it shows the popularity of Jesus, and that he made this house, next please, he made this house into his headquarters. And what's interesting about this house is it is a very small little house around which is built this octagonal, 1, 2, 3, 4, this octagonal building. And what archaeologists and scholars believe is that this original first century house is perhaps the very first church in the history of the world. That the earliest Christians converted it and enlarged it more and more. And this was a place of worship for the very first Christians in the 1st and 2nd century. In fact, archaeologists, when they excavated this house, they found on one of the walls, they found plaster. And then people, we have graffiti everywhere today. You see a train go by, and it's nothing but spray painted, okay? Graffiti was huge in the ancient world. It just means, the word graffiti just means scratch. And in the basement in the walls of this house, they found such scratchings such as Peter, Christ is Lord. And so they believe that this place, this little house, which you will see in Capernaum, that is where Jesus lived during his ministry in Capernaum. I think that's an amazing sight. We'll be on the Sea of Galilee. And of course, the Sermon on the Mount. We all know the Sermon on the Mount. In Matthew chapter 5, where Jesus goes up on the mountain at the very beginning of his ministry, his disciples sit down around him. And then other crowds sit down and Jesus begins to speak to them words we know. And when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him and he began to speak and he taught them, saying, "Blessed are." He starts the Sermon on the Mount, chapters 5, 6, and 7 of Matthew's Gospel. Those 3 chapters are the largest combined section of Jesus's teachings anywhere. Those 3 chapters. And you'll see this beautiful church overlooking the Sea of Galilee. The church you're going to see when you're there is an interesting church because it was built by the Italian fascist dictator Benito Mussolini. He built it in the 1930s when he was expanding and showing Italy's prestige in the world. Put that aside, it's a beautiful church. And it's, again, the traditional site. We don't know exactly where the Sermon on the Mount was. For all we know, Jesus gave weekly sermons for a while on different places along the Sea of Galilee. We don't know that, but this will be the traditional site. We'll go to this place a little further west on the Sea of Galilee, on the North Shore, where there is a church. And this is the traditional site where Jesus fed the crowds. And there are a number of different stories in the Gospels of Jesus feeding the multitudes. And the next one, the Bible verse, which we've all heard. Then he ordered the crowd to sit down on the ground, and he took the 7 loaves up. So much for my proofreading. My dad was a proofreader, pastor, and I kick myself when I make a mistake. And after giving thanks, he broke them and he gave them to the disciples to distribute, and they distributed them to the crowds. And they also had a few small fish, and after blessing them, he ordered these to be distributed as well. The traditional site, and there is this beautiful church built there, and under the altar of the church is this mosaic, which dates, I believe, to the 6th century AD, of the loaves and the fishes. And you'll be able to go into the church and you'll be able to see that beautiful mosaic on the floor. Christians, since the time of Christ, remembering what he did, remembering his miraculous powers, and even more so, remembering the love and concern he had for people, and how he reached out to heal their bodies, heal their souls, and sometimes just to fill their stomachs. That's the love Christ had for others. We will go to Magdala, which when we were there in 2013 was a new excavation site. Magdala, no one knew it was there. And then in the early 2000s, it was purchased and somebody wanted to build a luxury resort there, only to discover that there was a town underneath. And excavations have been going on at Magdala since then. Next one, please. And this is the site of where Mary Magdalene was from. And there's this interesting verse in Luke's gospel. The 12, Jesus's disciples, were with him, as well as some women who had been cured of evil spirits and infirmities. Mary called Magdalene, from whom 7 demons had gone out, and Joanna, the wife of Herod's steward Chuza, and Susanna, and many others who provided for them out of their resources. It is important to know that Jesus did not just have men disciples. He had female disciples as well who traveled with him. And not only did he have female disciples who traveled with them, who provided for them out of their resources, it is these women who actually bankrolled Jesus's ministry. They're the ones who paid for it so that he could travel and preach and teach. And I think that is a very important message for us to keep in mind. You know, it wasn't just Jesus, 12 guys traipsing around. He had a whole entourage, including women who traveled with him, who were his followers, and who were the ones who actually made it possible for Jesus to do what he did. And as the pastor who did stewardship for 40 years, thank you, women, for supporting the work of the church. It is greatly appreciated. Mary Magdalene. Next. And again, in Magdala, they have uncovered not 1, but 2 synagogues. It was an enormous town, which 25 years ago, nobody even knew was there. It shows you that there's new stuff being found all the time. The Sea of Galilee, again, is central to the ministry of Jesus. And we'll see sites and hear stories about Jesus's ministry in the Sea of Galilee. Okay? As Jesus passed along the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and his brother Andrew casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And Jesus said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fish for people." And immediately they left their nets and followed him. You will, are we doing the boat ride? I'm assuming we're doing the boat ride on the Sea of Galilee. When we did that in 2013, I got to preach a sermon, and I said, only time in my life I can ever say this. When Jesus was walking right there, he found some fishermen. Think about that. You'll see the very spot, we don't know exactly, within 5 feet. But this was the stretch of shore where Jesus met those fishermen who would become his disciples. And the reason you and I are here today is because those disciples, those followers of Jesus after his resurrection, they did what he told them to do, to go out and catch people and win the world for him. And you'll get to be right there. And you'll also get to see this ship, this little boat. Jesus spent much of his ministry in a boat traveling here and there. This boat was discovered in the mid-1980s during a period of drought, sunk in on the bottom of the Sea of Galilee. And this is a typical boat from the time of Jesus. So all those stories about Jesus and the boats, how many are there? A lot of them of Jesus and boats. This is the kind of boats that would have been. We'll go to Caesarea Philippi, which is, it's a Greek site. So, so I'll show you the picture here. It's where King Herod Antipas, one of the sons of Herod the Great, had his beautiful palace. It was also an enormous grotto, which was a holy site dedicated to the god Pan. Pan was the half man, half goat, played flute, okay? That's him. But it was at Caesarea Philippi that the great turning point in Jesus's ministry came. When Jesus and his disciples left Galilee and they went to the villages near Caesarea Philippi, and as they walked along, he asked them, who do people say that I am? Up until this time, the only ones who acknowledged Jesus as the Messiah were demons. But when Jesus asked his disciples, who do people say that I am? And they have all kinds of responses. Oh, that you're John the Baptist come back to life. You're one of the great prophets who returned. You're Jeremiah who's come back. And Peter says, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. For the first time, a human being acknowledges who Jesus was and is. That is the crucial turning point in Jesus's ministry. Because from that moment on, he prepares himself to go to Jerusalem, where he will die. So when you're at Caesarea Philippi, the remains there are amazing. It was this enormous site that you can walk all around. Only this part still remains. This is all gone after 2,000 years. But remember how important, in the middle of this pagan site, how important that was into the ministry of Jesus. Okay. One of the places we're going to go is Beth Shean. You maybe never heard of Beth Shean. It's only mentioned a couple of times in the Bible. It's a very interesting area because it was occupied for about 3,000 years. Up on top was a Canaanite city, and down below was a Byzantine city. And when you go to Beth Shean, you will notice something really amazing. You will see rows and rows of pillars all lying in one direction. Because in 743 AD, there was an earthquake which destroyed the city and it toppled all the pillars in the town. And it was abandoned. Archaeologists have now uncovered it. Beth Shean is very important because it relates to a story of King Saul. Remember King Saul? He was the first king of Israel, the one who did not like David. And Saul fell in battle against the Philistines. And the people of Beth Shean went and captured his body. They cut off his head. They nailed his body and his armor onto the gates of Beth Shean. And the next one. The people of Israel did not like that, so we're told about that the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead heard what the Philistines had done to Saul, and the valiant men rose and went tonight and took the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons from the walls of Beth Shean and came to Jabesh and burned them there. A really small, tiny story, one we hardly ever hear about, but it shows again the power and the hatred and the violence, but also the passion that was involved in the story when Israel was becoming a nation and trying to establish itself, make itself a country in the face of all those who opposed. Excellent, please. And that's an aerial view of Beth Shean. It is one of the biggest sites in Israel. And I'm so happy. We went there in 1993, and I've always wanted to go back and see it again because it is such an amazing place. Again, up here, this is where Saul's body, somewhere up there on those walls is where his body would have been nailed. And down here is the remains of the Byzantine city. And there are Islamic remains later on. An amazing, if you like archaeology, Beth Shean is one of the places in Israel where you'll go, whoa, that's really something special. Because so often in Israel, places are destroyed and buried and built over. Here you can actually go and see what it really looked like 1,400 years ago. Okay, thank you. Next one. And you'll get to see the Jordan River. Again, Jordan River, do not think Mississippi. mighty Mississippi. It is not like that. I live in Grafton. You live across the street from the Milwaukee River. And the Milwaukee River is probably 100 feet across and about, I weighed fish, and about this deep. That's the Jordan River. But it flows from the Sea of Galilee down to the Dead Sea. It's a small river, but it is a very important river because when the people of Israel enter the Holy Land in the book of Joshua, they cross the Jordan River. In fact, just as Moses split the waters of the Red Sea, so Joshua splits the waters of the Jordan. Probably not as impressive as the Red Sea, but the people of Israel crossed from the east to the west, carrying the Ark of the Covenant with them. That's okay, go to the next one. And again, it's along the Jordan River that John the Baptist had his ministry. To the east of the Jordan River is wilderness, to the west is Israel. And it was in the Jordan River that John arrived out of the middle of nowhere. He appears out of the wilderness. He starts to preach and teach and baptize. And he is the one who baptized Jesus in the Jordan River. And we will go to one of the two traditional sites of the baptism of Jesus. There is one at the southern end of the Sea of Galilee, but probably more likely it was down here in this area. That's the Jordan River. Interestingly enough, this is Israel. That's Jordan. When we were there in 2013, even though Israel and Jordan are at peace, there were Israeli soldiers on one side and Jordanian soldiers on the other side, but they were waving to each other, which was kind of nice. So this is one of the traditional sites where John the Baptist actually may have been. It's also an interesting site giving memory to something that happened only a half century ago, the 6-Day War in 1967, because this was originally all Jordanian territory. And when you drive into this site, you have to drive through a live minefield that is still there. You don't get out and walk, so you're okay. But when we were there in 2013, we saw the signs, minefields, be careful. Reminds us of the much more recent history of this country as well. And we'll go to Jericho, ducking into my presentation, which many scholars believe is the oldest city in the world. Again, Grafton, where I'm from, was founded in the 1840s. Jericho, we think, was founded around 8,000 BC. It is enormously famous, especially in the Old Testament, because this is where the people of Israel, the first battle they fought when they crossed the Jordan River. They crossed the river just north of Jericho. And if you remember the story, how they walked around the walls and they blew the trumpets and the yell and the walls come tumbling down, that is what happened at Jericho. And Jericho was extensively excavated in the 1940s and 50s by a woman named Kathleen Kenyon. And you'll be able to look down and see how far this city is underground now. But when it was built, that was the top of the hill. And so that's what 10,000 years of building on top of layer upon layer gives to you. And there's the story. People walk around, they raise the great shout, the walls come tumbling down, and the people charge straight ahead and they capture the city. And to us, it's a horrible story because they kill everyone and everything in the city of Jericho, with the exception of one woman and her family, a woman named Rahab, who helped the Israelite spies. Again, it shows the violence of the scriptures. It's not all lovey-dovey stuff in the Bible. There's a lot of violence and hatred. There's a lot of opposition to the Lord from towards people. Jericho shows that. And one other very famous story in Jericho is the story in Luke 19 about Zacchaeus. The tax collector, my wife is 5 feet tall, so she likes the story of Zacchaeus because he's a short little guy. Have the next one. Okay. Jesus enters Jericho on his way to Jerusalem, where he will die. And as he was passing through it, there was a man named Zacchaeus who was a chief tax collector and was rich in that wonderful story where Jesus says to Zacchaeus, come out of the tree. He has to climb the tree because no one's going to let him. I just read in the new law that was passed, some people are saying they're going to hire 87,000 new IRS agents to, we're not big friends with the IRS necessarily, okay? People hated Zacchaeus. We'll talk on the trip about why they hated tax collectors so much. But Jesus stops and he says that this man too is a child of God. And Jesus had dinner in his house and proclaimed the salvation of Zacchaeus. And then it is from Jericho that Jesus would go to Jerusalem, where he met his death. And we will travel this stark road that leads from Jericho to Jerusalem, which is a very important road because the Good Samaritan starts this way. A man was going from Jerusalem to Jericho. along that road. You get to travel that road and you'll see why that was a very dangerous place to travel. Again, just part of what we will see and how it ties into the scriptures. And so it's our goal for you, and I know our guide, and we will do our best to help bring the scriptures alive and help you celebrate the story of our faith in a new way, especially those places where you can say, Jesus was here. To me, that was a life-changing moment in my life, and that's where our Lord was. This is what he did for us. So you'll get to hear a lot more from me in the future, but thanks for just letting me share this. And again, as we keep our eyes open about peruse your scriptures, get familiar with the places we're going, some of the stories we'll hear, and let it come alive. So thank you very much.
Any questions for Pastor Paul?
There's no quiz, so don't worry.
Or things that you saw in there, or places that we're gonna go that you're wondering about or have a question on?
Now, I didn't do Jerusalem. We'll talk about Jerusalem on the trip. But
And we will go to Jerusalem.
there you'll see all kinds
Kind of important.
of time. Yes. All right, thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Paul.
I will expect this every night.
Adoration, everything. You going?
I guess it's my turn.
I guess so. Are there seriously no questions? Anybody about the trip or any place we're going, or
There will
you're an
be.
easy group? Yeah.
I have a question
Yeah.
on, there's been like, I think, bombing and.
There was a bombing of a bus. And that's what I saw. And we even talked to the company about that, I hear. And one of the things, if you read about it, it was really focused on Israelis. It wasn't targeting tourists of any sort. And that was also a bus that Israelis usually use. So it's not like a tour bus. It was a common day bus. So that would be, and it's a rare occasion. So it was the kind of thing they're like, we've already moved on, unfortunately.
Yeah, one of the things I think we shared in our last meeting is, neither side wants to hurt Western tourists. The last attack on Western tourists was in 1972. And this seems strange, but I have shared that I have never felt safer in any place in my life than in Israel. And the simple fact is, everybody's got guns and they know how to use them. And it may seem stupid, and some people don't like that, but Israel takes its defense very seriously. We will go through some checkpoints. We will probably see armed soldiers. There will be a lot of armed civilians who do not know are armed. So I've been there twice. So we walked around at night. We were there 93 after some things that happened. So please, I understand the feeling, but every step possible was taken for security.
Other questions? Are you excited? Good, I hope so. Yeah, like Paul said, there's lots of other stuff we're gonna see. Jerusalem is a whole huge thing as well. You're gonna probably spend your whole next time just on Jerusalem, right? But yeah, so it's wonderful. Yeah,
There will probably be more questions.
with yours, the traveling questions.
Okay, so, we're so much further along in the process now, and, I'm going to tell you that you're really gonna be further along in the not too distant future. You have two things that I know you're concentrating on or concerned about right now, and one is your insurance. And I know a lot of you have I've gotten emails, and could you please send me that site again, and what do you think? And I say, we are not insurance experts. It's your thing. We have to do the same thing. So if you have questions about that, I really am not the person to ask the questions of, nor is Chris or Pastor Paul. That's just kind of what you have to do. Before you actually go to Israel right now, there is a requirement where you have to fill out a form. And on that form, I have not seen the form, but on that form, there is an indication whether or not you are insured. By the time we go, you may not have to fill out that form. Everything is just kind of changing, and we just have to roll with the flow. And the office will keep us informed, and of course, via the office, Chris will keep you informed on the, on emails that he sends out.
And everybody is getting the emails, right? If you didn't get the emails, you don't know you're not getting the emails. You should be getting an email. Question. So
Right now, we don't. Right now, we don't. I don't know if that.
we
would
don't,
be-
but if you want to send it to me, I'm putting it into the database and then we have it for. It's nice for us to keep it, and it's, if we ever have to look it up for whatever reason. We've got it for you as well. You hope you never have to use this stuff, but if you're in Israel and. I don't want to say incapacitated, but if we have to find information for you, it's nice to have that kind of thing, so. So, yeah. So email it to me and I'll add it to the database.
Okay, the office is now creating your invoices. So all your payments are, your first payment and your registration are in. They are creating the invoice for you. You will get it via email. And that will tell you what you owe. If you see a discrepancy, please let me know. Because it will be fixed. Some people will have a single room, some people might not get charged for a single room and they have it. So if you notice any discrepancies, please let me know. Final payment. Now, see, you haven't had to pay anything until August 1st. Well, now it's time to get ready for the final payment, which is, in accordance with the rules about 45 days prior to departure. And I can't believe we're that close. Final payment is due at the office on September 7th, which means we need to have it from you by September 3rd. This is before Labor Day. I believe that's a Saturday. You will be sending your final payment to Pastor Chris, just like you sent your registrations to him. We will generate an email with that information so that you've got his address again and you don't have to worry about it. By then you will have your invoice and you will know what your final payment is. Questions?
Yeah.
You have to pay by check.
You can pay by credit card. There is a,
It's about a 3%.
I know it's 3.3%. There's a 3% or 3.3% service charge to do that by credit card. In which case, I would like to talk to you. I would like you to give me the credit card number so that I can call the office and give it to them. I don't want it out in the USPS mail. I'm uncomfortable with that, and I know some of you probably are. But yes, you can do it by credit card. Okay. That subject covered. Okay, good. Hotels. We know what the hotels are right now. I'm not going to read them all off to you. I will send that in an email tomorrow. I will send it to Chris and he'll send it to you as a group. So you'll know the hotels. You will be staying, your first block of nights will be in Nazareth. Your second single night will be at the end of the Dead Sea for your spa, relaxing, swimming, floating, whatever you're going to do. And then after that, your remaining nights will be in Jerusalem. Those of you who are going home from Israel all know that you've had a forced overnight because of the flight schedule change. You were supposed to leave at 1:40 a.m., which isn't all bad, but now the flight doesn't leave until 10:20 a.m. And I think you all have that information. So you have a forced overnight, and that additional cost is being added to the cost of the trip. As you look at the cost of the trip, it should go down, should we have 33 people participating. As of right now, we're hanging right there. and it could go one way or the other. So hopefully it will not go either way, or it will maybe go up a little bit. And we'll let you, we'll let you know about that. That will be reflected on your invoice, and I think we're safe with that. The people who are going to do the Istanbul extension, that overnight was already included in the price for Istanbul. So that part of your cost. That's it. Any questions? Okay, all right. Transportation to O'Hare, herein lies the challenge. No problem going down there. Get a big bus. No, actually, it's gonna be a mini coach. It holds 33 passengers. Two people that I know of right now are flying from Florida to Israel on their own. They don't want to fly all the way back here and then fly to Israel. So they're independent in their flights. So we will have a mini coach that holds 33 people. We won't have 33 people on the mini coach. One of Marlene is with us via Zoom. Hi, Marlene. Marlene will be meeting us at O'Hare Field. Is that correct, Marlene?
Yeah.
You're meeting us at O'Hare.
Thought you were gonna say Marlene's driving the bus.
I don't do buses. I don't drive buses.
All right. I'm thankful.
All right, so this is great. We'll all be parked here. We'll get in this mini coach and we'll all go down to O'Hare Field.
Can we all leave cars here?
Yes, you can leave cars here, and it will probably be at the far end of the parking lot, and we'll let you know, where you should park. Yeah, that's the logical place that you would go. Okay, so that charge, and now the charge for the transportation is going to be based on how many people are actually on the bus. So it's going to either go up or down a little bit. Right now, it will be approximately, to go down, $36 per person.
Gail,
Yes,
I'll be meeting you at O'Hare too.
okay. Well,
$40.
then it might be. It just went up.
Anymore.
Right, now, okay, yeah, so in other words, flexible is what we're gonna be, okay, that's good. All right, thank you, I didn't think about that. So that's approximately, okay, so $39 per person, $40 per person to go down. Now, coming back is the problem. We're coming back in two groups. The Istanbul group will be on a mini coach coming back. But there won't be as many of us. So my figuring right now is that that's going to be, instead of $40 now that, you've dropped out.
It's very angry.
Yeah, anybody else?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We just lost sound through that, Gail.
Oh,
So we don't know what you're laughing at.
maybe it's a good thing.
We just said every person that drops out, the price goes up a little bit, so.
Oh, right.
Yeah, someone is like you, they're joining us in Chicago. And so we said the price was gonna go up for everyone else.
Mhm.
But you guys are buying drinks in Israel. That's-
Yeah.
I'll probably do one or two, yes. When you say
So-
drinks, that's.
My guesstimate is the Istanbul people are gonna be paying about $90 for the transport down and back. Now, if you don't want to do that, you have a choice of getting on the coach here and, riding and stopping and stopping and stopping and stopping and not having personal attention and not being with the rest of the group. But we don't think you're gonna do that. Yeah, I think you're gonna stick with the group. Okay. The problem is going to be, and it's not a problem, I'm sorry, I shouldn't use that word. The challenge is gonna be the Israel only people that are going home. And there may only be 6 people coming home here needing transportation. As we get closer to the trip, I will do a survey and find out what your choice is. You do have the choice of taking the USA coach. Or I have inquired about a van from a Chicago source that will bring you back here. And the cost, if there were 6 people, the cost would be $50 per person. So that's not any different really than the Istanbul people. But whether or not you want to do that, or whether or not you want to just do USA coach, that will be something that we can decide. We don't have to cast that in bronze right now. Okay. All right. Okay. Flight schedules. Really, there's no news about that. We'll let you know what time we have to leave here in order to be at O'Hare, and we should be there 3 hours prior to departure. Basically, we'll think of ourselves as departing at 9:30, and which means we should be there by 6:30, which means we probably should leave here about 4:30, 4:45 in the afternoon. So that's really the only schedule that we have to worry about is getting to O'Hare Field. I don't know if I've missed anything. If I have. No, we covered that.
You'll get all these schedules, we just. They'll get the schedules, we'll give those all out.
Oh, yeah, they do have the flight schedules. I mean, you have all seen, correct? You have all seen the flight schedule? Okay, I'll put it in. Isn't it on the?
I think it's up there, yeah.
I
But-
think it's,
But you know, there's always adjust a little bit, so it's, I never pay attention to them until they get closer.
okay.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you already discussed this, but I've never flown Turkish Air before. So what is the weight of the luggage and how much luggage are you allowed?
You are allowed 2 pieces of luggage. Quite honestly, we wish you would.
Carry on and then your checked bag?
Can you hear me? Oh, yeah, you're allowed 2 pieces of luggage checked in, and then your carry-on or whatever you have, backpack, purse, however. And weight is, I believe I'm correct in saying 51 pounds per bag. Because we have a large group, we have always encouraged people to try to pack in 1 suitcase. Because the constant carrying and transferring of luggage is so much easier if you just have 1 piece. Some
Well-
people can't make it on 1 piece of luggage, and I understand that, but
Well, the other thing to remember is we will have people help get on and off the bus, the luggage, but then you gotta get it to your room. So if you're hauling 2 full checked bag suitcases plus a carry-on plus a backpack or purse, it's a lot. So just remember that. You'll get the help of getting it off the bus and on the bus, but it's still, you gotta get it up and over and around and, you know, all that kind of thing. We're also kind of encouraging. Do you have another question?
No, I just didn't know the weight because I just had a girlfriend go to Ireland and she said they were allowed 40 pounds.
Is that Spirit Airlines?
No,
I know Spirit dropped it to 40, but that's because they
not,
wanna
I don't think they go to Ireland.
Yeah, well, that's true.
What?
We will give you that, though. We'll double check it and let you know.
I will
So,
double check and I will include that in the information.
Far
And
before.
I will write it down so I don't forget.
That, anything else you had? Arlene? No?
I have a passport card. You can use that instead of a passport, correct?
I've never heard of a passport card, so I don't know.
Is that what you use? for
When you
getting-
renew your passport, you can get for a certain amount of money, just a card that you can carry in your wallet.
I don't think that's the same thing.
It is not.
That's
the
an
same.
option.
My
I would guess-
understanding is that passport card is for entry into Canada and Mexico.
Yeah.
You can.
No,
also-
it's foreign countries too.
Well, you
Yeah.
should check that out for yourself,
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Yes, please do.
because we don't know anything about that, and wouldn't want to give you the wrong advice.
It doesn't actually even work in Canada if you come in by air. It only works by ship or by car into Canada,
Yeah,
so.
thank
So
you.
double check it. Probably the safest thing to do is to bring your full passport.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't want to test something out there.
Yeah.
That'd be wrong. So
and do they take all credit cards over there?
they'll take lots of forms of money. Yes, pretty sure. Yeah, pretty much every,
Visa and MasterCard are probably the most widely used over there,
Right.
and you will not have to cash. You do not have to get Israeli shekels. They love the dollar.
Currency exchange rate,
I don't know what the currency exchange rate is.
and I'm sure they take dollars.
well, but I know the dollars
do.
are things there, so when we went to Iceland.
Right,
um,
right.
Every time we use our credit card.
They'll charge you some
they
sort
charge
of
a
fee. Yeah.
for-
They'll probably do that as well, just because they can.
All right, I'm just wondering.
So,
And
and you'll also get charged a fee if you use a credit card. International exchange rates or whatever. So,
And if you pay for something in Israel, like if you pay for your lunch and you pay in US dollars, you'll get change in shekels.
so just remember, most everything is covered on this trip. So really, you're gonna have a big breakfast at a buffet. Eat as much as you want, you're gonna have a big buffet in the dinner. So, really lunch is kind of usually pretty light, depending on who we are, right? I maybe not as light as some, but, and so you're paying for that. I always say, people ask, well, how much should I bring to spend? I can stand up. And I always say, well, are you a shopper or not? You're gonna, depending on who you are, if you're someone who loves to shop, you will shop, right? And then you should bring more money. Some of us don't really care to shop, and so you're not gonna need much money. So it's really up to you in that. I was with one lady who bought a $3,000 ring, she wanted to shop, so, okay. She needed to have some money, but she used her credit card, but, so it's really up to you, in that. So you shouldn't need too much. Really, so much is gonna be covered. Probably the majority of us will just want some sort of money for, a glass of wine at night or something like that, so.
There you go.
Do you have to pay to use the public bathroom? Do you have to pay to use the public restroom?
I don't think we ever did.
That's a very good question.
Try to stay away from the public bathroom. That's a different experience. That's not on the tour.
Hopefully the idea will take us to the free place.
I don't remember using the public bathroom. If anything. it might
Could
have
you
been-
repeat the questions? Because I
They were,
can't hear.
they
the
were
question.
asking, sure. So one question was, do you have to pay to use the public bathrooms? And we don't know. So that's, I'll come down here.
Okay.
So we don't know. What was the other questions? Did you hear the credit card question about what kind of money they'll take?
In general, if you don't do a lot of shopping, cash, how much cash? A general amount.
I would guess 200 is gonna cover you. Of course, inflation has changed everything, so make it 300, I don't know.
But yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, so,
I'm gonna have 300, so it would cover him, but it wouldn't cover me.
so
Okay. That's
You
a
know.
good to know. Yeah, that sounds good. This
Anything else?
The markets that we will be going to, I can almost say safely that all of them will take credit cards. Unless you're back in some little unknown area, which you probably won't be. You should be fine at the market using a credit card. If you're not, we'll kind of pool money from everybody and then you can pay them back and buy your item.
There will be a fee though, right? Yeah, and there's gonna be thousands of things you can buy if you want to buy things, but you really don't need to. So you might want to think about a list of people you want to buy for and then look for little trinkets that you think they would like. But remember, you got to pack it to bring it back too. So that's the other thing you got to think about. So all the nativity sets, right? Nancy? How many did you guys? 5 nativity sets. So bring us extra suitcase. Yeah. So cell phones, again, this is going to be based on your own carrier. So I would call them and ask them. Great example is Verizon I use, and I'll call them as well, even though I've done it before. I think they have a thing called a travel pass, and you pay for the per day. You can do it where you try to go minimal, very minimally on your data, but I guarantee you'll run out of data and you'll be charged then exorbitantly high. So it's almost better to just get the unlimited day, the travel pass per day that's unlimited. I try to play the game and then, $200 later for the overage, it's like, I think I want the travel pass. So call your carrier and remember, if you're using Google Maps there to just see where you are, that's data and you're using it. So you don't have to, you can put it on airplane mode and you're not using any cellular, you're not using any data. Only when you get to Wi-Fi in the hotel, you can then do it. But I'm pretty sure the bus does not have a Wi-Fi on it. I'm guessing not. Some in the US do, but I wouldn't expect it there. So you don't have to do that, but might be nice, especially if you take a picture and you want to send it to someone at home or something like that. So I usually do it for me. Yeah. You've been raising your hand. I'll come right back.
I just have a question about the electrical
Mhm.
adapter.
Yeah.
things. What kind do?
It's the European style. So I think it's the two round.
Round one.
Often you buy those if you've got lots of choices on it where you can
Okay.
flip it in and out, but
I can tell you that the hotels will have hair dryers in the room. You won't have to worry about that. But some people bring their own anyway.
but will they have
They like
washcloths?
that.
That's gonna be my question.
Of course. That's that's always like the biggest question, but will they have washcloths? Here's what I always say though, if you think to yourself, it would be terrible if I did a trip and didn't have this, then you should probably just bring this, whatever that is. So great story. We did an El Salvador trip and the guy first day walks down, he goes, well, it happened, my only pair of glasses got stepped on. I have no glasses for the rest of this trip. And we were all like, oh no, what are we gonna do? And we're thinking we need to call his wife and try to, expedite the glasses down here. We don't want to ruin this entire trip.
No,
About an hour later, after, all wringing our hands about this, his son walks down and he goes, are these the glasses I got stepped on? And he's like, I think so. And he's like, these are your readers. And he's like, these are your glasses. Like, oh, you couldn't even see that he had stepped on the wrong glasses. So, it's the kind of thing, if you ended up stepping on your glasses, would it be good to have a second pair? Those kind of things. What would be helpful to have so that your trip isn't completely ruined? And if that means having the right washcloth, then make sure you bring a washcloth, right? So.
Barb asked the question about tips. Tips are included.
Included.
in the cost of your trip. Let me just read it to you off of the Army travel site. Gratuity to guide, driver, and hotel staff are included.
On the second page.
Okay, that's good. You don't have to worry about
Say
it.
that again.
Now,
Dollars before,
I don't remember that. I don't remember the 35. Was it on the paper?
Yeah.
You read it better than I did because I didn't I don't remember that.
I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
I remember
good.
meeting like ones, like in some of the public bathrooms, having to tip somebody just to get toilet paper.
We're all gonna try this public bathroom just to say we've done it, right?
Yeah,
If I'm gonna use it, I don't wanna go in and get the dollars.
that's why you put Kleenex in your pockets. and
Was that in Jordan? Okay, never mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you just bring some from your hotel.
You're not going to Tanzania. In Tanzania, you
Yeah.
bring the toilet paper with you.
Yeah.
You never know, it's never a bad idea to have one. Kleenex if anything else. Yeah, any other questions or things you're wondering about? We'll hit more of the travel questions and kind of try to hit, if you come with those kind of questions next time too, if you think of it, but.
We'll pass out final documents at the last meeting. And if someone isn't coming to the last meeting, we will make sure that we send your travel documents in a timely manner, unless it's okay for us to keep them and give them to you at O'Hare Field. And for some of the things, it might be better just to let us keep them and give them to you.
Did we set a date on the final?
Maybe didn't know.
We haven't set that yet. We were thinking like about 3 weeks before.
Yeah, we
I
haven't
think it was
said it.
about 3 that we're shooting for. We didn't want it to be too close, in case people need to run out and get something. Make sure you've got comfortable shoes. That's probably one of the most important things. And don't buy them the day before, right? There was one lady that did that on my last trip and she had blisters the entire trip, ruined the whole trip for her and a few of us around her. So, just make sure, you don't need to have fancy shoes, just really comfortable shoes, so. We're gonna dress comfortably on this trip, you wanna enjoy it and be relaxed. I'm guessing, we'll have to look at the weather a little bit as we get a little closer to and what that means in terms of layers and everything else. So, sounds like it is gonna be a little busier, from my ear. They have sensed a real wave of people wanting to get to Israel and coming, and so they've been really flooded there. And he's expecting November to be very busy, so that'll be fun. It'll be fun to have that many people around and see. I'm guessing it won't be a flood, but it'll be nice. So sometimes that means we have to wear our red hats, or some sort of way of, so we all know to stay together and not go off. Versus the leash, right? So,
But it is wonderful seeing pilgrims from all around the world.
yes,
It gives you a glimpse of the global extent of our church.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
for sure.
We cannot hear that.
He was just saying that I was teasing about wearing the red hats, but what is really neat about so many people coming to Israel is that there are people from all over the world, and you'll hear all the languages as we're walking around, you'll hear guides talking in other languages, and they talk about Israel, Jerusalem especially, as a city of the world. And we will experience that, and that's one of the special things about it.
The red hats are Army Travel's a significant thing that you can wear. And it's a baseball cap and it's red. And sometimes it's really helpful to have those on. Some of us are,
Most of the time you won't need it, but when you're in a real crowd, especially like Holy Sepulchre where everyone's descending on Golgotha at the same time, then it's really nice to know where your group is, because you could easily get separated. So they'll give us those. There were a couple of hands. Chris,
Yeah, luggage wise, do they also have dimensions you have to keep into, or do I have to bring my standard Steven trunk or whatever?
I wouldn't bring your you're gonna be carrying your Stanley Steve.
A 1920s truck.
I think it's the typical,
Sizes or
the
whatever.
typical, yeah.
And are you gonna pre-mark the trunks? I've done, or trunks, but suitcases, because I've been on other trips where they have like fluorescent tape and they mark all
They
the.
did give us though, I don't know if they'll get that to us. They do have an Army travel tag.
Because it makes it easier to, at the airport.
Yeah,
when stuff comes
if
off,
people wanna help you.
everyone's got the same like handles that have a little
Yeah.
fluorescent tape on it. You can see, oh, that's our group. That's our group.
yeah,
Yep.
right, yeah, you'll get luggage tags, Army Travel luggage tags. Everybody will get those. That will be at the final meeting. So you'll get those. You'll also get lanyards. for your name. That's why they asked you what name you want. He doesn't want Christopher, he just wants to be Chris and all that.
Did you all hear that at home?
Did you hear that?
Yeah, do we
Yes.
have to wear name
Yes.
tags all the time?
You can do whatever you want. If you don't want to wear a name tag, it's okay.
Yeah, they'll give us name
Sometimes it-
tags if you are a lanyard with a name tag. So you can wear that. I was thinking, it would be nice if I could do a little, directory for us. With photos and your names and, if you would like. So I was thinking even tonight, if you prefer to send me a picture, that's fine.
Or you could use all the passport pictures, which are lovely.
You do not want to use, I've seen your passport pictures, you do not want to use those. But
I
was
do.
just saying- Well, yeah, and if you have one, you can email it to me, but if you want, I could just shoot real quickly tonight, just a quick photo of you and put those in. So if you prefer to email me a beautiful portrait that you've had done, that's fine. If you'd rather stay and spend an extra 5 minutes here, I will shoot those quick, okay? Yeah.
Are we gonna like have each other's phone numbers?
So I will do a directory with names. I'm never sure if people want their phone numbers out, and emails out. I don't know, how about this, is it better just to say, if you don't want your stuff out there, let me know and I won't put it out there? Does that sound good? If you don't care, then it'll just be for our group. I won't sell it or anything.
And you will
Can you
have.
hear us?
Now we can.
Well, I unmuted it.
Oh, she unmuted it, that's why.
You have a question?
We did not hear that.
I just said, email me a photo and if you do not want your phone number and email on the directory for everyone, let me know and I will make sure it's not on there. Otherwise, we'll put everyone's on. And I'll
Sounds
send
good.
us, then people can see each other's photos and try to learn a little, memorize names beforehand, that kind of thing. So,
And Ami part of your final documents will be emergency numbers for your family to have and for you to have when you're over there. So that would be all part of it.
For that Turkey visa. The visa, maybe it goes Turkey, Istanbul, whatever.
Turkey visa, Istanbul visa.
Do we do that before we leave or do we do it when we're over there? How soon does it have to be
The
done?
last time we went there, we got them when we landed. If we can get them ahead of time, I'll let you know. So I'm assuming it's the same.
See, I
but
don't know if they can hear us.
The Turkey, are you going to Turkey, Marlene? No, Marlene, you are Israel
I'm on the wait list, remember?
on the wait list for Turkey. Okay, right.
Oh,
Okay. Can you repeat the one about the visa?
Please.
If the Turkish visa right now, or the last time, and I've been there a couple of times, we've always gotten them when we got off the plane. And at
Okay,
that
that's what I
time,
thought.
they were about $50. That may have changed, but I will let you know closer to the time what the process is for the Turkish visa. If we can get them ahead of time, it would be nice to do that.
Mhm.
Because it takes time when you check in at the, at security.
So that'll be forthcoming.
You don't have to worry about it now.
I wouldn't say so, no. I think the biggest thing you need to worry about right now is just making sure you get travel insurance.
Okay.
Anybody still have questions about travel insurance? And if you do, you could stick around afterwards and talk directly to us as well, but if you think. it's a
Did
good-
most people use that one company?
Raise your hand if you used the company that was recommended by Ami Travel. Arch. So about half. You're welcome to use
Oh.
whatever you want. You're welcome to use whatever you want. Travel Guard's a really good one. I think AAA probably has one. It's really whatever you want. Maybe even your own insurance has one, I'm sure.
Travel Guard popped up today on the website.
On the Do Not Fly website or which?
No, on your website, I thought. Because all of a
I offered
sudden
that as-
That's an option.
I offered that as an option, yeah.
And we
I've
have-
used it before.
Yes, we have used it before on trips.
They do a good job, so,
How much do they vary, really?
no idea. All over the place is what we're hearing here. It's, you know, and it has a lot to do with, do you want to be, you know, I'm not gonna get, I won't get silly here, but, all the options you can choose, how many options do you want, you know?
And I found out
Right.
that age also makes a difference. I wish I was.
It does. Yeah, makes a
Although
big difference.
Realistically, we're in Israel, so it's one of the, I mean, it's got one of the best medical systems. It's not like
Oh.
you're going to Tanzania where they're gonna wanna fly you to Europe if you get hurt, you know, those kind of things, so. So, yeah.
Well,
so
when I got a quote today from that travel one, it asked me where I lived. And when I put in Ohio, it was more expensive than Wisconsin.
Well, that just goes without saying. I'm teasing you. Ohio.
Interesting.
So, yeah, so it's all over the place, but any other questions, anything else, Paul, that you want to say? Thank you for your presentation. Yeah,
Question on the bus payment for the bus. Do we pay that ahead of time or how do you want that part of our final payment?
probably at that last meeting, they'll pay for the bus.
You're gonna have to pay for the bus separately. Yeah, so it won't be part of the final payment,
That's what.
because we're just gonna have to, we're gonna have to play
That's
about.
done,
it.
that's done with us versus Army.
There's gonna be a lot of little last minute stuff that we're gonna have to, see how it's done.
But will you want a check or cash or how?
Check, probably check. It depends on, I might be able to put it on, our church visa. But I might be stretching it for that. I've done it before for our Tanzania trips and things like that. So let's just see. I really don't want to put it on my visa. We can put it on your visa.
That's fine with me, I get points. I'm okay with points. Yeah, I'm happy to do that, yeah, but it is nice to get the check because, you know, things happen and it's like, who's $50 is this? I don't know who this is. And you don't want to write it on the bill. So, yeah, and that's where checks are nice, so. Any other questions? And maybe now we're getting nitty gritty, but, and that's more next time we'll get real nitty gritty and finish it up, but
On credit cards, do you need to let your credit card company know you're going international?
that's always helpful. Yes.
Oh, God.
Always good to tell your credit card if you're planning to use it where, you know, if you're gonna be at someplace that you've never been. If you've never been there, they're gonna say, that doesn't seem right. You'll definitely get flagged. So, yeah, that's huge.
So Anthony's, Marlene, do you have any more questions? I'm
No,
so glad you could join us. This worked out
Yeah.
very well.
Josette's up in the corner.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I don't see anything up there.
No, I
so
know.
didn't
It's
realize
it's
there
there
was
though.
somebody up there. Okay.
If you go like this, you see it. Sure. Josette, yeah, Anthony. All right, well, otherwise,
You're lucky, Marlene and Eric, you are going, everybody's gonna know your name, but you're not gonna know anybody else's name.
that's right.
before you leave tonight, could you introduce yourself to at least one other person? That would be nice to do, right? And before we go, so Paul, would you want to lead us in prayer? We'll close with prayer though, okay?
Got it.
Thank you again for coming and thank you for joining our group. And we pray that we have a wonderful, Christ-filled and safe journey. So let's have a word of prayer. Thank you, Heavenly Father, as we prepare for this wonderful pilgrimage of faith. May you open our hearts and our minds as we travel to Israel and some of us to Istanbul. May we be amazed at the sights we will see. May our hearts be touched by the story of the scriptures, and especially may we celebrate all that we have through our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. In his name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, everyone. If you have other questions, feel free. Oh, we were gonna do photos, so if you want to get your photo taken, come on up.
We're done, right?
How are you gonna do ours?
You're gonna email it to me. Okay. Okay, email it to me. Did you hear that?
Yes, okay.
Okay.
I don't know what I have, but
Yeah.
okay.
So that would be great. Otherwise, I can take it. If you smile right now, I can just copy it off this video. Right? So, all right, thank you. Good night. There you go.